Hello, everyone. Welcome to this new episode of Global Conversation. I'm Robin Monceau, a Vice President at Investcorp Private Equity Team covering the MENA region. I'm speaking with you today from Investcorp Lounge at Expo 2020 in Dubai. Today, we have viewers from over 10 cities. We are honored to welcome Falguni Nayar, CEO of Nykaa, with us today from Mumbai, and Sanjay Kohli, Managing Director and member of the leadership team from London. Falguni is a role model for many of us across the world. She listed and founded the first unicorn in India. Falguni, thank you for being with us today. Sanjay, over to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Robin. Falguni, it really is a great honor for us to have you on our platform. So thank you very much for your time. I'm really looking forward to this conversation.
No, it's a pleasure, Sanjay, anytime. Yeah.
So far, I've known you, I was thinking over 2 decades I've known you now. And for most of that time, you've been a very successful investment banker. So my first question to kick off is, so what motivated you or possessed you to go into the world of entrepreneurship?
So I have to admit that it was my exposure to entrepreneurs in my journey as an investment banker. I did a lot of initial public offers for many companies, mostly out of India. And as I met these entrepreneurs and I saw their belief in their business and their forward-looking vision and dream, I was quite inspired by that. And it almost gave me an itch to want to pursue something similar for myself. So I nurtured this dream of wanting to be an entrepreneur and build something on my own. And finally, I gave myself a deadline that I have to do it before I turn 50. Because my logic was if I don't do it by the time I turn 50, I'll never do it. So as I was approaching 50, that led to more immediacy to the fact that I really wanted to do this. And I jumped in. So I'm so glad I did.
Yeah. But you chose cosmetics as an industry to pursue. What was the thinking behind that?
So I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And as I looked around for ideas, I was very acutely aware. It's someone who had lived in the US and and Europe also. I was in London especially. I was acutely aware that the Indian market lacked retail formats where beauty can be sold well. In fact, beauty was always the ground floor of some of the biggest department store, be it Harrods or Saks Fifth Avenue, or you take any big store, the ground floor was always beauty. So that kind of told me that maybe it is a good business. However, in India, there were no formats like that available. There were no department stores, and beauty was sold in some neighborhood stores where there was a very poor offering. You know, the best brands, the best colors, the best products were never available. And as I looked at it, I realized that maybe beauty consumption in India is at a very early stage of consumption, and with a large geographical market like India, where you have to reach length and breadth of the country, e-commerce may be a better way to service Indian consumers with beauty. So at a time when everybody didn't believe in beauty market in India and many brands were leaving the country, as I came in, brands like Vichy and brands like Lancome were leaving the country. I think Nykaa came in at that point and said, we want to build a multi-brand retailer in India, but more online because of challenges of the Indian market. So kind of inspired by a market gap that I saw in a market like India.
Yeah, and like most things, timing is such of the essence. So look, Nykaa's been in existence now for 10 years. What would you say is your management style, Falguni, or business mantra?
See, there are a couple of business mantras I have. One, I always say that, basically retail business is all about detail. And I think we tend to go into a lot of detail and about how to retail. It's too many similar words, but, detail about how to retail. And I think art of retailing is what we do with a lot of attention to detail and with customer at the center of our offering. And I think our success comes from that. But besides that, we always wanted to build a long-term sustainable business. And I think where we went about differently in today's world, where a lot of capital is available and chasing businesses that are really chasing only the top line, and they're not really looking at the sustainability of those businesses. So the unit economics of the business is not falling into place. Nykaa was built with a lot of financial prudence and a lot of respect for capital, in a way that we have a kind of business model which was very frugal. We were very focused. We believe the retail business have to be frugal, because finally retail is not we don't have major IPs that can justify all kinds of ridiculous costs. So I think we were very frugal about how we build our business, but there was a lot of passion brought in to give the best consumer experience.
And then specifically on Nykaa and its activities, I have to ask you, very topical, you decided to tap the public markets. What was the driving thoughts there?
I think I always believe that long-term sustainable businesses, IPO for them or public listing for them is like coming of age, how you graduate from a college and then you have a life of your own. I wanted to achieve that for Nykaa, where Nykaa would be less dependent on me, and it would be more of an organization that is built for long-term survival, and it can flourish in the long run and be there for the long term. So I think what public markets does is that it gives it that maturity, because you cannot list in a public market unless you're a mature organization from corporate governance perspective, financial perspective. So I think that pushed us towards that maturity, and then it becomes and then if managed well, it becomes a very lifelong sustaining company that you end up building.
But I'm sure you would admit that the response from the IPO was overwhelming. It was phenomenal, let's be honest. So maybe to ask you, how are you feeling just now about the faith that these investors, these global investors, have now put alongside you or with you?
So I think we knew we were building a good business model, and it used to appeal to a lot of investors in the country. However, what the initial public offer did was they put us in front of some of the best global investors, and in a funny sort of way, COVID time was good, because we used to have when we used to have meetings with large funds like Fidelity or BlackRock or some of the biggest funds in the world, they were attended by as many as 60, 70 people, including some of the largest fund managers who manage the largest funds in the world. And these tech fund managers or these largest global fund managers were on the call listening to our story and asking us questions at the end of it. And finally, when they were convinced about our business model, it gave us a lot of confidence and kind of, in a way, it kind of told us that, yes, we had built our business in the right way. So it was a big endorsement to our strategy to have this kind of phenomenal response to our public offer, which went above and beyond. And similarly, in the Indian market, from a retail investor perspective, also the response was one of the best in the recent times. And that told us that our brand Nykaa meant a lot to Indian consumers. We built a brand with a lot of authenticity, and there's a lot of trust in our brand, and there's a lot of love for our brands. And I think to be a well-loved brand that is trusted, it's like really win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, in 10 years, you've managed to build a business that attracts, I heard, 30 million visitors to your website per month. You have 850 plus products on your profile. You've done the IPO. What would you say is the next milestone for Nykaa?
No, I think basically Nykaa has an opportunity of a lifetime. And if you look at the numbers in India, both the businesses that we are involved in, which is beauty and fashion, are growing at 8 to 12% per annum. So these businesses in aggregate are growing very fast. And these Indian market for these products is a very large market. I think on beauty, India will be the 5th largest market in the world very soon. Because of the growth rate it's experiencing versus European growth rates, and those markets are ahead of India, but very soon India will overtake that. And if you look at fashion, with the size and scale that the fashion market has in India, it is the 3rd largest market in the world. and a lot of it is unorganized, but it is all shifting. Like at the beginning, almost 80 to 85% of the market is unorganized, but it is getting very rapidly organized, coming into modern trade, as well as coming online. And the online businesses in both beauty and fashion are growing at 30% plus on a compounded CAGR basis. So this is a very unique opportunity Nykaa has. And in that industry, to have much consumer love and brand recognition is like really something that consumers have trusted us with, and even investors have trusted us with a very important responsibility that we have to be very serious about our opportunity and deliver to that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it all sounds very, the way you describe it, swimmingly, but there must have been, on this history of Nykaa, there must have been times where you've met some challenges that perhaps you thought was insurmountable. Perhaps you could just enlighten us there, that it wasn't all plain sailing, and what were the lessons learned?
Of course, a lot of challenges. I mean, look, none of these journeys, I always say that don't jump into entrepreneurship. It's like a roller coaster ride. You should only do it if you really enjoy a roller coaster ride, which means that the highs should not make you arrogant and the lows should not make you depressed, because if either one of that happens, you won't be on the ride. So I think as far as we are concerned, we had very early disappointments. And if I may tell you, like our first CTO quit after 1 year, our second CTO quit after second year, our third CTO quit after third year, and then we didn't have a CTO for 1.5 years. So for 4 or 5 years of our life, we struggled to get the technology right. And it almost became, of course, we had selected the right technology in the beginning, but it was not easy for that technology to scale. And we were always fearful that when we reach a certain scale, this technology will fail us. So we almost had to do a mid-air refueling while our site was really on to, like, we got a lot of consumer adoption and the market recognition and business was coming, but our technology was always letting us down. So it took a lot of patience to build that. And today we have a fantastic platform. It's like over the last 6 years, we've really made big strides on the technology side. And today we have one of the best platforms, because we realize that customers are not going to allow any discount to us, because in terms of customer service. So our biggest competitors were Amazon and Flipkart, and we had to serve and have technology which was at par with them if we wanted to service the customers. So that was a very big lesson.
Yeah, and a lot of adaptation needed during that journey.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Maybe if you can enlighten us on something that I know very little about, beauty and cosmetics, and perhaps comment on some trends that you're currently witnessing in the global fashion and beauty and cosmetics industry, Fal. That would, perhaps you can enlighten us.
See, even if I knew business, I think I was very new to retail. I was new to beauty, and I was new to even, for that matter, technology. So I think we built the business on first principles. We observed how consumers buy beauty, and we replicated all of that online. So we put content right in the middle. I think beauty sales needs education. So we realized that very early on, and we put education right in the middle of our website. And in those early days, the general belief was that don't come in the way of consumers buying. So every company used to measure how quickly consumer comes and buys and gets out of the website. And Nykaa would put like content right in the middle of the website, let the consumer consume the content and not worry about the conversion. So we took a very different approach to selling, which was actually came from first principles of understanding what consumers value in the long run. And I think, so beauty is all about education, like I said, and authenticity, because we were also very aware that in beauty, the products, sometimes there are a lot of fakes and consumers don't trust retailers who don't guarantee the products. So Nykaa chose a very difficult way of doing inventory-led e-commerce, which meant we couldn't take foreign money, but we made all those conscious choices to give consumer authentic product which they trusted. So we gave consumer what they needed in beauty. When we entered fashion, which was about 3.5 years ago, we actually decided that not to do it in a horizontal way. We thought beauty needed a different focus. Fashion was all about assortment. Fashion was all about wide assortment. It was all about fashion is bought through browsing, and a lot of what we call is fashion purchase needs to be very very curated, and there needs to be a lot of how you take consumer down the journey. The experiential website that you create affects whether you can sell fashion well. So we actually started on a totally new platform for fashion. So Nykaa tends to do a lot of heavy lifting that is needed for vertical commerce. So we did that. And fashion, we believe, should be all about new season. That's very important. And in India, fashion had become all about discounting. So the websites were focusing on the discounted products, and the consumers were not happy. They didn't want the cheapest product. They wanted the best new styles. So Nykaa said that we are not about price. We are all about style. So we really emphasize new season launches. We emphasize, the best and latest product from our brand partners. So we built a very differentiated platform in fashion too.
And I wanted to ask, to be clear, your knowledge when you entered this space was in the cosmetics and beauty industry. You didn't have a pipeline of deals that you had done in the space. This was building a team to capture those trends, and you built some advisors around you? Or?
No, it was good we didn't build advisors, because they would have told us not to do something. So actually, we went by first principles. We just, initially I used to joke about it that trespassers will be recruited at Nykaa. So anyone who was passionate about Nykaa and the Nykaa's vision of doing something, we used to recruit them. We used to not check whether they had the relevant experience. Now it's different. Now we, of course, go with people with relevant experience. But early days of Nykaa was just about people who brought passion to make something happen. And we never checked whether they had the relevant experience. In a way that was very unique, because that allowed us to break the traditional mold of ways of doing business in beauty or in fashion. And I think that is how it is. So today also at Nykaa, we will never judge anyone saying, oh, he or she doesn't have this experience. We are always willing to give people a chance. So people who come with marketing knowledge but don't know digital marketing, we'll give them a break in that. We take a lot of youngsters from young colleges and give them break into very important jobs in our company. So I think Nykaa has all been about believing in people, believing in their capability and their passion, and giving them a job and saying they'll figure it out. And now, of course, there's a lot of common knowledge about ways of doing things at Nykaa and how we, ways we cater to the customers. So now there's a lot of organizational learning, but initially that was not there. But I think we always, I didn't know, and I allowed myself a chance. So I was giving everyone else a chance. Anyone who wanted to jump in, we were happy to let them jump in.
Yeah. Well, you say jump in. I think you've mentioned in the past that you're not the world's greatest swimmer, but you're the first to jump in.
Yes, of course. And I also, people in my organization say that she always throws us in at the deep end and we need to figure it out. Yes.
Yeah. But all that said, the pandemic affected each and every one of us. How did it actually affect the beauty industry?
So the pandemic came into India around March end, and suddenly everything stopped flowing. Many of our products which were dispatched were stuck in the middle. Many of our packages were stuck in the middle. The lockdown came very suddenly over the weekend. And it was a very strong lockdown where government first did not allow anything to even move. And slowly they opened it up to essentials only shipment. So we had to pivot our website to be able to recognize what is essential only product and what is non-essential, and be able to deal with only essential only. And we were facing a very large loss in the first 1.5 months of our operation because everything was shut down. And we did not want to let any employees go because we thought that COVID already had a very huge human price to pay. And we didn't want to add to it by making people lose their jobs. I thought it was just not fair. So we decided to keep all our people. We reduced the marketing. We were also at that point, the malls were shut. The malls were worried about what losses would mount up. So they put the air conditions off, and many of our products need air conditioning. So as what we did was, as we got permissions to operate essentials only, or to access our malls and our stores to pick up the product and dispatch from there, so that we don't let it be in non-air conditioned environment. I think we pivoted our website. We used to gather together and quickly bring about changes to our technology so that we could pivot our business model to be able to handle essential only. We personalize it depending on the pin codes, because Many pin codes were in red zone. Other pin codes we could do other business. So we did a pin code based storefront. We did access to our store inventory. So there were many models that were introduced for us to be able to do our business. Slowly, the Indian market started opening up. But the consumer demand has suffered, especially for certain categories like makeup, cosmetics, as we call it, because this is very linked to going out. It's linked to weddings, which are not happening in big numbers. So there is certain part of our business that suffered. But at the same time, consumer became very self-focused. So wellness grew, wellness consumption grew, skincare consumption grew. Consumers were looking after themselves more. They were doing many things, many services at home services compared to going to the parlor. So I think the nature of demand kept shifting, and we adapt our business to that. And the supply chains were also very difficult during all this last 15 months, because many of our products are produced, like, the outer packaging is produced in China or Korea, and then the main product is produced in Europe, in Italy, or in Germany. And all these supply chains that we all tap into are so complex, and some country or the other is facing issues at certain point. So one had to also pivot to having larger amount of inventory and more lead time. So I think we did very well in terms of adjusting our organization to the challenges of COVID. And as a result, we thrived during COVID, as if I may say so, instead of, so we grew during COVID year. Of course, albeit without COVID, we would have grown even faster. But we definitely had a positive growth during COVID year. And in a post-COVID environment, we are growing faster, of course.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Particularly when you think, as you quite rightly say, that India was not immune. India also suffered or experienced 3 waves of COVID, like everybody else. But that would have hit the income of particularly people in the larger urban cities, I would imagine. So I think you kind of mentioned it in your last point, but do you expect that there are significant impact on consumer spending? Actually, yes, the demand is there, but do they have the capacity, the income to do that?
I think there is definitely some impact on consumer spending, because consumer incomes have not been at its best. But having said that, consumers have also saved money, because they haven't had to spend on transport. They haven't got a chance to travel. So what they were spending on has changed. And some of the discretionary items, and we call beauty small luxury, and there's a lipstick effect definition, which says that during the recession, lipstick consumption doesn't go down, because it's a small luxury that women can afford. So while they cannot buy the diamond or they cannot buy the handbag, they are definitely buying the lipsticks, So I think, of course, this time you cannot say it was a lipstick effect, because we were wearing the mask. So lipstick did suffer. But I think overall, beauty is considered small luxuries, and it does not get so impacted by consumption ability to consume. And also consumers have saved money in certain areas, and to that extent, they're ready to spend more on themselves.
I see. I wanted to pivot the conversation a little bit towards something which is very front and center just now for Investcorp particularly. So we have a big focus on diversity and inclusion, Falguni. And I wanted to ask you, from your experience, is there a real gender bias when it comes to women-led businesses trying to raise third-party capital? Did you experience any real gender bias?
I believe there could be, but I personally did not experience it because of the stage of life at which I was. But I think what happens with young women is that as they are entering their career and as they're growing through their career is also a time when their personal commitment in terms of marriage or children goes up. And then everyone starts doubting whether they will be staying committed to the business. And that doubt is what makes many investors, not really want to bet on the women. With my own personal experience, I have felt that, yes, there may be some flexibility women need during a particular period in their lives or careers. But if you can support them through that, it's such a short period of time that beyond that, they end up being so committed to the organization. And I think if investors can see it in that view and not basically if people don't give up on women when they are wanting to prioritize a little bit on their home, I think you can win a lifelong commitment from women, whether as an investor or as an employer. And I think women today are equally committed to their careers or their business. And I think this mindset has to change, and it will change. So in India, we had very poor numbers on even women being born. Like the ratio of number of women, female birth to male birth used to be adverse. And now that's become equal, which means that India is recognizing right of women to be born. So I just talk, my message to all Indians is that yes, you've given women or female equal right to be born. Now give female equal right to dream. And only if you allow the women to dream and pursue their dream, then only it will be a truly equal society.
Yeah, yeah. Seems like there is a shift happening though, which is encouraging. And then more broadly, if there are entrepreneurs out there who are thinking of creating their own Nykaa someday, what would be the advice you give them? What's the character traits you need to build that?
I think there are 3-4 things. I do believe that women need to be ready to lean in. Very often women are afraid to spoil the apple cart at their home if they take on too much responsibility. So the first, it has to begin in their mind that they want it for themselves and they're ready to do what it takes to be where they want to be. And I think once they have the resolve to do that, I don't think the world is holding them back. To me, a lot of people ask me that is there a glass ceiling? And I've always said, not just today, but for last 10 years, 20 years, I've said that there's no glass ceiling. And men are not waiting to push women down. I think women need to feel empowered to want to be, do for themselves or move ahead. And I think they can definitely make a big contribution to the society. And if you look at our formal employment numbers in India, they've been going down. Women participation in employment is going down. So I don't think India is there. I just want to give, I think a lot of young women are looking at it differently. And I want to give them a message that, your careers matter, your commitment to work matters from your long-term happiness perspective. And lives are very long. And if you take a little bit of a stretch in your early career, that will give you a very, fulfilling life later on. And I believe that women need to make that investment in themselves, and that investment will be worthwhile. I mean, women need to feel that it's okay for me to invest in myself. It's okay for me to put my money where I want to invest. I think women are very afraid to make any such commitments to themselves, to their businesses.
Well, hopefully that's changing too, as you say.
Of course, I think it is definitely changing and very rapidly.
Yeah. The next topic I wanted to mention is something very, very much close to your heart, family. You're blessed, I should say, with 2 exceptionally talented children, twins indeed. They've both been educated abroad. They've worked in the US. But they decided to come back, and within your organization at Nykaa, what, if I can ask, what is their role within the organization? And if I can add a second question to that, what are you learning from your children, and particularly around Gen Z and millennials and their tastes?
So I think just by a little bit by way of introduction. So Advaita Nayar, who's my daughter, and she's been with the business for pretty much most of the time, because she joined the business when business was 1 year old, though she went away to Harvard Business School in the middle for 2 years to do her MBA. She currently manages the beauty fashion business, but she has been an integral part of the beauty business as an early co-founder, working with me to build the business. And my son, Anchit, who worked for many years, 6.5 years with Morgan Stanley, came back about 3 years ago. And he first was running our retail business, and now he runs our e-commerce business on the beauty side. So both have very important position. I think my children are typical millennials, and their appeal to work at Nykaa is linked to Nykaa being an organization where millennials are happy to work. So I think during early days itself, I saw that at a time when I was starting the business in 2012, a lot of young millennials were just getting graduates, they just finished the undergrad and they were just coming out of their colleges, is what I found easy to recruit, because they were inexpensive, they were young, they had a lot of fresh thinking. And Nykaa became an organization that was ready to and willing to listen to the youngsters. So we have no hierarchy. It's very common and forget, it's not just Anchit and Advaita, but there are very, very young kids who are just 30 years old, or sometimes even just 25, 27. And they sit in very senior positions and senior roles because they are contributing to that role. So I think we are an organization that doesn't believe in hierarchies, and that has made it into a kind of organization where age does not matter. People just work in teams, and they have roles to play, and we listen to everyone. We are an organization where everyone has a voice, and I think all of that is what making it a place where millennials are happy to work.
It was a commitment from them as well, leaving established positions abroad. That was the traditional way it seemed to be in the past, but it's a big endorsement to Nykaa, but also India Inc. that they decided to pursue careers within India.
Of course, and that I think that's something many investors and many employees also in the company like it, because they like the family's commitment to the business. So it doesn't stop at, it is like the whole family is working very, very hard to grow the company along with all our employees. So it's like one team. It's not about family versus the team, but we are one team and we are all working very hard. And I'm just very fortunate to have the children also in the business, because not only they're extremely capable and committed, but then obviously they're making a big impact on the business. But in addition to that, it's also just fun working together. So yeah.
I'm sure. I hope you leave them alone at their weekends though.
Yeah, I think I learned that very early on. I had a habit of asking them on Friday evening, okay, what has gone wrong here? And then very quickly I understood that it's not really fair. So if they were not living with me at home, or if I didn't have access to them on the weekend, I would have waited till Monday morning to get that answer, and I should. So we realize what are the boundaries we need to set.
Yeah, absolutely. Fascinating. I wanted to end the last chapter of this conversation, Fal, if I may, with some rapid fire questions. How has your work-life balance changed? Or has it changed over your career?
No, so a couple of things. So I'll just say a couple of things. One is, I think work-life balance is a myth. I only managed to get a work-life balance in the long run by juggling. Yeah. So there are times when I'll give priority to work, and there are times when I'll give priority to family and home. And I think trying to achieve work-life balance on a daily basis is really hard. So I don't do that. But I think talking about work-life balance, I think it was really, really hard during younger days when I was in my mid-career and when the children were younger. And for me now it's easier because of where I am, and also because Anchit and Advaita are now grown up with a life of their own, and I don't have to look after them as much. But I think even early days, it was really, really hard to be able to juggle. And there were disappointments sometimes. I would have dropped Advaita to go to a summer camp, and when she was coming back and expected mom to pick her up, mom had to flown off to some place to meet with an important client, and then a friend on my behalf would go and pick her up. And obviously a child feels disappointed when they don't see a parent. So I think there were clear choices to be made in terms of, I'm not saying choice was made to pursue work versus the kids, but one had to give time and commitment to work. And I think that is something I had to do.
And that's something that they understand now, I imagine, your children.
Yeah, so I was very guilty earlier, but now that they respect me, I've realized that maybe that was the right thing to do.
Yeah. So do you get time for hobbies outside of work?
Of course, yes. One of my favorite hobbies is to be in nature. So I love being at our weekend home, which is in nature, going trekking, going on holidays. I mean, these are all my great hobbies, and I make sure I get enough time for that.
Yeah, very important. And my last question, Fal, is If you were to give your younger self some advice today, what would that be?
I think I wouldn't say that I have regret that I didn't start the business earlier. And I really think that my professional life and career has had a bearing on my success today. So I wouldn't have it any other way. But I would just say that if I did enjoy entrepreneurship so much that if I were to give advice to my younger self, it would be that, yes, do jump into entrepreneurship early. There is no harm. Having said that, I think professional career also I really enjoyed and it taught me a lot. So no regrets.
Excellent. And Fal, with that, I'd like to say thank you again from all of us at Investcorp for your time today. And we look forward to following the adventure that is Nykaa.
Thank you very much, Sanjay. Thank you very much for this opportunity today.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.